Good morning, everyone. On today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different for the channel. And if you're not viewing this on the YouTube channel, welcome and thank you for sitting in on my training. Obviously today, as the PowerPoint says, we're going to go over retirement. This is going to be more geared towards military members. So if you're not in the military and you're watching this, still tons and tons of great information, but one or two slides may not necessarily apply to you, but you can definitely utilize most of the information to your civilian sector jobs. And I don't discourage you clicking off this video or anything. Just again, one or two slides may not necessarily apply to you, but please stay, watch the whole thing. I'm sure you can learn a ton of information from this PowerPoint. So, got to start off. By no means am I a financial advisor. These are just recommendations and personal thoughts of mine in regards to planning for retirement. Plan for retirement, right, is one of those things where when we're young, we're like, oh, we got plenty of time. And then next thing you know, you're 30, 35, and you haven't even started planning for retirement. And you've really cut out a large chunk of money that you could have later on in life. So, me personally, I didn't do a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about in this PowerPoint. As a junior sailor, I couldn't afford to plan for retirement. Being E4, E5, two kids, sometimes only having one income in the house, or, thankfully my wife worked as much as she could, but, when you PCS, she has to leave a job. There's in between time where, it's her finding a new job wherever we move to. So we really couldn't afford money or afford to put money on the side to retire until much later on in my career. So these are all things I do now. These are all things I wish I started earlier, and these are all things I recommend that you guys starting as soon as possible, if not like in boot camp, right? In boot camp, they give you the opportunity to set up your TSP and stuff like that. But we'll get into that here in the video. So we're going to talk about, very briefly, but we're going to talk about three really important people that I pull a lot of information from. First off is Gary Vee. I don't necessarily pull information from him, but I pull a lot of mindset from him, if that makes sense, right? His attitude towards money. We're going to talk about Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure most of you have heard. It's a very famous book. Even if you haven't read it, I'm sure you've heard of it. And we're going to talk about Dave Ramsey, again, another pretty famous name in the money world. So we're just going to kind of start off with them before we kind of get into the lesson itself. So for starters, we're going to start off with it's like a 4 or 5 minute Gary Vee video. There are some curse words in this video, so I do apologize. But the way he uses them really sets the point home. So I hope it doesn't offend anyone. So here it is.
My friends, you want to talk about something that has completely become something nobody talks about? Nobody talks about saving money. Like, it's just not a conversation. Like, there's a very easy way to do this. If you make $49,000 a year, live as if you're making 27. Everybody lives over what they make. No wonder you can't save money. Your apartment's too nice. Of course you can't save money. Your car is too fancy. Of course you can't save. You're buying clothes you can't afford. There are motherfuckers that complain to me, and this is where listen, if you're DMing me or emailing me, know that I don't fucking fool around. When you DM me and say, I can't, the first thing I do is go to your account. Don't let me hear that you're broke as fuck. And the first fucking story I click on, you're drinking a $7 fucking coffee. If you're broke, you're not allowed to take Uber. Take the bus, dick. We need to start saving money to get it. Are you in a shit spot? Are you in debt? You don't like it? There's going to be no fast track to $1 million that's going to fix that. It's going to be taking a step back and drinking a whole lot of humility, not a fucking French latte. I don't get it. People are always like, Gary, your story about you building your dad's business, that's not true. Like, you fucking, like, that can't be true. You had money to invest in Twitter and all that shit. I know your story. I'm like, okay, right. Because when I made $53,000 a year, I had a $2,000 a month apartment. Then I moved down to a $1,400 one because I wanted to save more money. And I bought nothing for a decade. I went out 0 times. I bought no clothes. I wore liquor t-shirts to fucking work. I fucking spent no money. Not super complicated. How many people here are immigrants or the children of immigrants? Raise your hands. Raise them high. How many people are the children of? Keep your hands up. And how many are the actual immigrants? Awesome. Immigrants have this shit figured out. Immigrants come here, they work, and they fucking save money. I went on 1.5 fucking vacations my entire childhood. We went to Orlando. We stayed in the fucking Holiday Inn, and my mom ate like 1 sandwich in the week. Immigrant shit. Immigrant shit. Everybody cries about immigrants. They don't spend money on dumb shit, motherfucker. Try it. Try it. Save money and then do your thing. It's about patience. Where everybody gets caught up, now they're sitting. Somebody's sitting here. Sally's sitting here. She's 39. She's like, okay, this makes fucking sense. And then she's like, but fuck. And she's like, it's going to take too long. And I'm like, Sally, you're 39. Do you want to be miserable as shit for the next 60 years? Or do you want to have some grinding years for the next 7 and be 46 and young as shit and start the process of actually being happy? People's complete inability to take 1 step backwards, to take 2 steps forward, is destroying people. Do you know how many people here own their home? Do you know how many of those people should sell it? I'm being serious. Do you know how many people have no liquid cash? Their home is their drain, and what they should do is sell the home and either buy a smaller one or rent to give themselves liquid to be able to go on the offense. But their home, which, oh, by the way, has 4 too many rooms. No, like, do you know few people have a home that actually fits their actual reality? People have homes with 4 extra rooms or live in a town that makes it look better for them. Man, there's so many fucking fucked up moves out here, my friends. I haven't even started.
All right, so I hope you guys appreciated that video. And he made a lot of good points in that video, but it pretty much sums up to don't buy stupid stuff, right? You can spend $7 on a can of coffee to make coffee at home every morning, and that can will last you a week or two, opposed to spending $7 every morning on a Starbucks latte or to a French latte, to use the example that Gary used. And we can apply that to pretty much everything in our lives, especially in our society here in America, right? It's all about flashiness and name brand, right? We live in a name brand society. So it's important to overcome that temptation and just make smart decisions with our money, right? That's all it comes down to. So some of the objectives for this presentation, I want to, you guys are going to have more of an informed money mindset. You're going to have an understanding of retirement accounts and their benefits, how to plan for retirement and play the long game, right? That's kind of a key point here that we're going to hit a few times is being able to play the long game, and how to maximize your retirement. So as I mentioned before, we're going to talk about 2 more people. We're going to talk about Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki as far as their schools of thoughts when it comes to money, because they are very different. All right, so first we're going to talk about Dave Ramsey, right? Some of his claims to fames or his famous concepts, right, are the 7 baby steps, the debt snowball. He kind of has a simplistic money management theory, especially when he gives advice. It's very simplistic. He's all about mutual funds and index funds, He's pretty big into real estate, but he's only into it as long as you can pay for that house or that rental property with cash. He's cash everything. If you cannot buy something with cash, Dave Ramsey will tell you not to do it, right? And I agree with him. I'm about 70-30 on Dave Ramsey to Robert Kiyosaki. I'm with Dave Ramsey about 75% of the time. He loses me with the cash everything stuff. Next is Robert Kiyosaki. Again, Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you haven't read that book, highly recommend it. He has several books. Rich Dad Poor Dad being the first one in the series, if you will. I at least recommend you to read that one. He's all about leveraging debt, right? He's about using debt to your advantage, using other people's money to make you money, right? Totally opposite of Dave Ramsey. He's all about cash flowing, avoiding the rat race. He touches on that in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Essentially, rat race is being an employee, getting a paycheck, paying taxes, paying your bills, getting your paycheck, paying taxes, paying your bills, right? And you're kind of stuck in this rat race. He's also very large into real estate. That's pretty much mainly what he does. He's not a big fan of IRAs, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. He's not a big fan of those kind of things. And recently, he's actually been really big into crypto as well. And he's much more business oriented. Dave Ramsey's more so average Joe, work for 30 years, get a pension, right? Save those during those 30 years and then retire. That's much more Dave Ramsey. Again, simplistic. Robert Kiyosaki is all about leveraging debt and using tax loopholes, and he much more complex, right? And again, personally, I kind of like to find that happy medium between the two. Sometimes Robert Kiyosaki loses me. Sometimes Dave Ramsey loses me. All right, so just to talk about the baby steps, because this is one thing I truly, truly, truly believe in, that Dave Ramsey preaches, is the 7 baby steps. This is probably one of the best money management things ever created or at least that I've ever seen. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, these are the baby steps, right? On the left-hand side on your screen. First thing he wants you to do is to save $1,000, right? Get that small victory, right? Kind of boost up your confidence, like, oh, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I do have some money management skills, right? So save $1,000, and that's going to be start of your emergency fund, which we'll touch on here in the next few steps, right? So after you save up the $1,000, he wants you to pay off all debt using the debt snowball method. I'll give you a quick snippet of what that is. I highly recommend you looking it up on your own and really educating yourself on it. But it's a pretty simple process. Pardon me. You have 3 bills, right? Or I'm sorry, 3 credit card bills, say, or credit cards. You have a minimum payment of $25, a minimum payment of $50, and then a minimum payment of $75, right? You want to pay that lowest debt first, right? Everyone always thinks pay the biggest debt first. Dave Ramsey kind of reverses that because he's all about small victories. So you pay off that smallest debt with the $25 minimum payment. Once you pay that off, instead of counting that $25 as new income every month, right, because you don't have that bill, you want to snowball that payment into the next one. So on that next payment, the $50 minimum payment, you pay $75, and then $75 on that third one. Once you pay off that second largest debt, instead of counting that $75 as income, you apply that to that last bill that you have. So by the end of the snowball, you're going to be paying $150 a month towards that biggest debt, which will then therefore pay it off a lot faster, right? Because you're almost, you're double the minimum payment. So that's the debt snowball. And again, there's tons of videos, tons of information out there. People probably explaining it a lot better than I do, but that's the general concept of it. So once you complete that, paying off all your debts with the debt snowball, he wants you to go back to that $1,000 and make it into a fully funded emergency account. And what typically the general consensus is that's about 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses, right? So take up all your bills every month, your mortgage, your utilities, your car payment, right? Everything that you need to pay every month, times it by 6, and whatever that amount is going to be what your emergency fund should be, right? I would say for average family, it's probably about 25,000. It would probably be a good bet, right? And that's God forbid you lose your job or you lose that second income in the household. You have that emergency fund to kind of pull from every month to be able to pay your bills, right? So you're not scrapping for money while you try to look for a different job. After you've got that savings or that emergency account saved up, step number 4 is maximize your retirement, right? Dave Ramsey is all about the 15% rule. You want to put 15% of your household income in towards retirement. So pretty simple. After that, he wants you to save for kids' college. Step number 6 is pay off your mortgage, and then build wealth and give, right? He's very big in tithing. He's very big in the church, Dave Ramsey. If you're not religious, doesn't have to be church, can give to charities, things like that, right? So I'm with Dave Ramsey on a lot of those steps, but for military members, some of these things don't make sense to me, right? Again, I'm not a financial advisor. These are just kind of my thoughts on it, right? So on the right here, you see the mitten baby steps. So save $1,000. Totally with step number 1. Totally agree. Get that small victory. Boost your confidence. Step number 2, I'd say pay off all your high interest debt, right? Especially for you junior sailors. Hopefully you have not made the mistake of getting out of boot camp and buying that Mustang with 15% interest. But if you do, I recommend paying off that car loan, right? Recommend paying off all your credit cards, all your high interest debts, besides your house and your cars, right? Because we can get better rates of return somewhere else, right? If you have the average rate of like 4%, 3% on an auto loan, you can make more than that by investing that money instead of paying off that car. And we'll make more sense of that later on in the lecture. And obviously don't pay off your house either. After that, totally agree. Build up that emergency fund. Again, for people like me, every time I PCS, I go from 2 incomes to 1 income, right? Because my wife has to leave a job and then find a new job wherever we transfer to. So that emergency fund does come in handy for those times of 1 income. After that, 15% to your TSP, right? For those of you who don't know what TSP is, that's kind of the military 401k. That's our version of it, if you will. That's our employee-sponsored IRA. After that, save for kids' college. I'm not a huge fan of the 529 plans, right? I don't like how it varies by state. We're always bouncing around state to state when we PCS, and it kind of pigeonholes what your kids can use that money for, which I also don't like. So I would say everyone at least transfer your GI Bill to your kids, right? Take advantage of TA while you're in. Get your degree while you're in with TA. So when you get out, you don't even need to use your GI Bill anyways. So recommend at least at minimum signing it over to your kids. And then also we utilize the Navy Federal, I think it's called like the Easy CD. It's like the 12-month 3% CD that Navy Federal offers. We just keep using that over and over and over again with our kids' money. After that, you want to, instead of paying off your mortgage, right, this is kind of where I differ a lot. You want to buy cash flowing properties when you PCS utilizing the 1% rule. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. But again, we're never going to buy our forever home while we're in the military, at least most of us, because we're only there for 3-4 years. So I recommend just buying properties that you can rent out and kind of every time you PCS, kind of going with like an investor mindset of buying properties in good locations, good school districts, right? Easy locations to rent that home out because you're not going to be there for that long. And then again, create generational wealth and tithe. Huge fan of tithing and obviously building more wealth. So 5 things to do for retirement. We're going to kind of blow past these slides pretty fast just because pretty simple information, stuff that you guys already know or I hope you should know. So first, control your spending, right? So have a budget and stick to it. Tons of apps out there, tons of videos how to create a budget, right? It's almost more important to stick to that budget than it is to even create a budget, right? You can create a budget all day. If you don't stick to it, and then it's useless. So social pressure, we kind of talked about that after the Gary Vee video, right? Don't uh, don't buy things just because it will raise your status, right? Don't buy that Mercedes just because even though a Honda would do just as good for you, right? You don't deserve anything. I made this mistake a lot early on in my career, right? Um, Man, I worked hard. I deserve this new computer. Or, man, I worked hard. I deserve this new whatever, right? You don't deserve anything. Really think about those purchases and decide if they're a need or a want, right? If you have to convince yourself to buy something, you probably don't need it. Uh, if you're making 50K a year, you should be investing at least 625 of that into your TSP, right? That's that 15% rule. Always want to pay yourself first, right? Credit card companies will come after you if you don't pay them every month, right? Do that to yourself. Make sure you pay yourself first. It's very, very, very important. A lot of times we're like, I can't do it this month, and we don't hold ourselves accountable. Hold yourself accountable just as the credit card company would hold you accountable. And utilize allotments. I think one of the best things that we can do on my pay, right, for our military pay is set up allotments, right? Have that money go to these accounts before your money even gets to you, because then it's not even like it's like the money never existed. Um, Allotments are awesome, great tool to help us save because it does it for us, right? It doesn't leave that temptation of not doing it up to us. And have some kind of side hustle um, that you can use to pay your expenses to invest more, right? If you buy a new car, maybe do Uber a weekend or two out of the month, try to make money to pay for that car payment, right? Tons of examples out there. Just little side hustles that you can do. Be a delivery driver for a couple of nights a week, whatever it may be, to pay some of those bills so you can use more of your income to invest. Educate yourself, right? You do not need a degree to have financial education. YouTube's your best friend. Podcasts are your best friend, right? We live in the information age. So just take some time, educate yourself online, and that's all you need to do. Behavior and discipline is almost just as important as education, right? Again, you can educate yourself as much as you want. You can have all the best theories in your head, but if you don't have the discipline to execute on those theories, then again, it's kind of useless. Do your due diligence. Don't be lazy, right? Really study what you're investing in, what kind of accounts. You want to study the macro, study the big picture. Studying the macro kind of goes into history, right? History rhymes. Stay the course, right? Everything has cycles. Real estate has cycles. Business has cycles. And history is your friend, right? Every time the market's gone down, it's always come back up, and usually it's gone up better than it was before it went down. Know yourself, right? What kind of investor are you? All right, are you a risk taker? Do you want something more secure? Do you have the discipline to invest? The long game, like I mentioned earlier, right? Can you take the losses with the wins? A lot of times you're going to open up that account and you're going to see a lot of red, and then you're going to open that account and you're going to see a lot of green, right? Can you handle those dips and those booms? Dave Ramsey has an awesome quote. The stock market's like a roller coaster, right? Dips and booms. You only get killed if you get off in the middle of the ride, right? Take the long ride. Don't kill yourself. And lastly, do it yourself. Investing is scary on purpose, right? Everyone's heard the thing with the quote, if something's easy, it's not worth doing, right? Investing is hard on purpose. If you educate yourself, know yourself, and have the discipline, very easy to plan for retirement, right? We're going to touch on all these things: mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, rental properties, stocks, bonds, precious metals, crypto, and hard assets. Really don't touch on at all in this lecture, but metals can be gold, silver, right? Things like that. You can buy ETFs and precious metals, or you can actually buy physical, tangible, bullion. Crypto is a new thing. That could be a whole other video. And hard assets, right? Hard assets, again, metals is a form of hard assets. Hard assets, anything tangible, right? So metals, like I said, paintings, sports cards, right? Anything that's tangible that you can hold in your hand is a hard asset. And being in the market at the wrong time is better than not being in it at all, right? It's a very powerful quote, right? That I think it's a really good quote, right? Just getting in there and getting money in the market, and taking those losses with those wins is better than not being in it at all, right? At minimum, you're going to keep up with inflation, right? Opposed to having that money in a savings account, that's not going to keep up with inflation. All right, monthly savings. So this is an example of a monthly savings. This is what I try to stick to every month. So I have about $600 a month going into my TSP. That's about 15% of my base pay. I have 500 that goes to my a Vanguard account, and that's kind of dollar cost averaging, right? What dollar cost averaging is don't wait till you have a large amount of money to invest, and then wait, another 6 months till you have a large amount of money to put that in, right? Dollar cost averaging is just do the same thing every month, right? Buy in at all times, whether it's up, down, and it's going to average out, right? And then $200 to the mattress or the shoebox, as some of you may call it. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. These are just my personal thoughts, please. All right, so first things first, what is your goal for retirement? So my two personal goals is I want to secure generational wealth, right? I want my kids to have it better than I did. And, hopefully I play my cards right and my grandkids will have it better as well. And I want to be able to live off my interest alone. Again, that's the money that my money makes. So when can I retire? The 4% rule is a rule that a lot of people use. So here's an example retirement. So if HMC, right, that's what rate I am. If I retired as an E7, be about $2,500 a month. That's going to be my pension. 100% VA disability. I recommend everyone visiting medical a lot in their career so they can secure this. It's a lot easier than you think. It's about $3,300 a month if you're married for 100% VA disability. Makes my total retirement income about $5,800, right? And that's not including Social Security, and we'll touch on that down the road. You have your basic monthly budget there, right? So I'm at a difference about $1,700 that I need to live compared to what I'm going to make while I'm retired. So projected to have about $2 million with my current investments by the time I'm 65. So I'll have to pull out less than 1% of interest every month that my money makes to fulfill that extra $1,700 I need every month. So it's a pretty simple way to calculate your retirement. It's called the 4% rule, right? You don't want to have to pull more than 4% out of your retirement accounts every month to sustain your living. And again, not including Social Security in this equation, because who knows if it's going to be there by the time I'm 65. Or we are 65, I should say. So common benefits for military retirees. Some states offer no income tax, or state income tax, if you will, on your retirement. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. So if you want to retire in any of those states, you will not have to pay income tax on your military benefits, or your military pension, I should say. We have that extra benefit of getting the VA benefits, which are also tax-free. You may qualify for the VA funding fee exemption. So if you have more than 10% disability, I believe it is, you do not have to pay the funding fee for the VA loan. And then also you may be eligible for exemption from property tax as well, based on your state. And then Texas Veterans Board Association. So this is a Texas specific thing. Texas will actually give you, I believe it's a 20-year loan at 7%, I want to say. But it's zero money down to buy rural land. And there's a couple stipulations, but like one of them is the land has to have access to a named road, right? You can't just go buy a chunk of land like in the middle of the mountains. It has to have, access to a named road, right? But it's pretty lenient. Oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty lenient rules to what you can use the loan for. So retirement income, we're gonna have 3 incomes. Well, we could potentially have 3 incomes. Social Security, right? Again, it's in red because who knows if it's there. Pensions, because that pension alone, right? That E7 pension alone, It's not going to be enough to live comfortably. And then you have your personal savings, right? Your retirement accounts that we're going to get into. Some couple facts here. So only 6% of retirement age Americans are pulling from all three of these income sources. That is crazy to me. That's a lot of people who didn't plan properly, right? And a tricycle rides better with three wheels than one, right? So your retirement's going to be a lot better if you're pulling from all three of these, not just one of them. So first, Social Security, we're going to kind of get this one out of the way. By 2035, the fund is in a lot of trouble at the current distributions and tax rates, right? So Social Security can change as early as 2035, right? And then the pandemic effects aren't even accounted for yet in that projection. So this could be a lot earlier, right? We have almost a year and a half of a lot less payroll tax since businesses were shut down. And a lot of payroll tax does go to fund Social Security. So without all of that money, who knows when this is really in trouble, right? Could be as early as 2030 maybe. We don't know. So if you're born after 1960, you can collect Social Security at age 62 with a penalty, or 67 penalty free. Again, won't be enough for a comfortable retirement, Social Security alone. It's about $1,700 to $2,000 a month. There is a huge variable or a huge range with Social Security, so you could be getting more than that, you could be getting less than that. It just depends on a lot of factors. But on average, again, it's $1,700 to $2,000, or I'm sorry, $1,700 to $2,000. This is scary to me. 40% of retirees are reliant on Social Security alone. Again, that's crazy. That's a lot of people who did not plan. That's almost half of the retirees in this country are only living off Social Security. Really scary. 85% of your Social Security is taxable, and I'm assuming one of the things that they're going to do to help this account out, or the fund out, right? I don't think they're going to get rid of Social Security. I think what's going to happen is they're going to tax it all, so they're going to make 100% of your Social Security taxable, and they're going to lower the amount of the distributions every month, right? So it's going to be like $1,200 is going to be the new average, and 100% of that's going to be taxable, right? I can foresee that coming. And if you wait to collect your Social Security, your benefit will go up, so that's kind of a plus. So every year you wait to collect it, you get an extra 8%. So if you wait till age 70, you can get up to 25% or 24% more Social Security. So I guess that's the one good thing if you wait. So military pensions, right? I'm going to go over this real quick. Most of us should know the benefits of our pension, or at least I hope you do. So traditional, if you didn't switch to that BRS, if you had the chance to, you're going to get 50% of your high three, and that's your highest 3 paid years in the military. BRS, you're going to get 40% of that high three, and there is like a lump sum option you can do at BRS. I think you can get it at like 12 and a half years and then like 15 years or something like that. Again, do your own research on that. Please don't take my word for that. But as far as the pension part of it, it's 40% instead of 50%. It's going to be taxed at your whatever income tax bracket you're at. And you get an extra 2.5% every year you do over 20 years in the military, with a max of 75% of your high three at 30 years in. So for example, E7 at 20 years. For traditional, it's about $2,500 a month. For BRS, you're looking at like $2,050 a month. And for officer side, and if you retire as an 04, $4,300 a month traditional, $3,500 a month if you're in the BRS, right? We do have a good benefit, right? Most of us joined right out of high school. I was not one of them, but we can retire fairly young from the military, anywhere from 38 if you join right out of high school, right, until your early 40s if you wait a little bit like I did to join. We can retire from the military, do another 20 years at another job, and get a second pension before we're even at retirement age. So that's one benefit that we get, is just being able to retire so early on, in our career. So last thing is personal investments, right? It's time in the market, not money you put in. Start as soon as possible, like I mentioned earlier, right? Recommend boot camp. Before you even get your first check, go ahead and sign that TSP up. And just so you've never even gotten that money, so you don't even know what it feels like. Diversify, 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 right? We want to pull from all three of these. We want to invest in a couple different accounts, stocks, bonds, right? We're going to get into that. Just diversify, real estate. And just to show you how important time is, right? Again, it's time, not money. Here's an example for you. So if you want $1 million in your retirement account by the time you retire, you only need to put $300 a month away for 40 years to have $1 million. Or if you wait to only do it in 20 years, you have to put $1,700 away a month, right? Almost like 6 times the amount of money to prepare for that, to have that $1 million by the time you retire. So I think an E1, E2, right, can find $300 a month to put away for 40 years, right? So that's how important time is. Such a drastic difference in the amount that you need to put away every month just to have the same amount at the end. So real estate, right? Could be long-term. Hold to maximize the most equity as possible. Use the 1% rule when purchasing to maximize cash flow. So what the 1% rule is you want to be able to rent your house out for about 1% of what you purchased the house at, or 1% of the purchase price, right? So you buy a $200,000 house, you want to be able to rent it out for $2,000, right? And then you can use that math for any purchase price. Again, rental properties, things like that, is going to be based on a lot of other variables. That's just one good rule of thumb, right? You want to be around that 1%. House hack if possible, right? If you're a married couple, buy a duplex. You and your family live on one side, you rent out the other side, right? And you could potentially rent out that other side to what your entire mortgage is. If you're a single sailor or single military member, buy a 3-bedroom house, rent out the other 2 bedrooms. That's what house hacking is. Remember, none of these are your forever home. This is something I need to remind my wife of every time we PCS. These are not our forever homes that we're buying. We don't need the fanciest things. We don't need the biggest yard, right? We are buying these to live in it for 3 years and then potentially rent them out once we PCS, right? So just remember that. They are not your forever homes. And one rule I learned early on in my career, which I love, BAH is not income. It's money the military gives you to invest, right? They don't tax it. You don't claim it on your income tax. So just think of it as money the military gives you every month to invest. Don't count it as income. I think it's one of the best things you can do with your BAH. When it comes time to sell, right, any equity you do make on your home, it's going to be taxed anywhere from 15 to 20%. If you make over $40,000 at the time if you're single, or if you make over $80,000 jointly with your spouse, you will be taxed, right? If you make under those things in those categories, you'll actually be 0% tax on the money that you make. And again, you can look more into that, do your own research on that. And take advantage of the 1031 exchange, right? So if you're selling one property because the market skyrocketed like it did now, and you think this is the best it's going to be, and you want to sell one house to maybe buy more investment properties, what you can do is a 1031. You can sell your home, take that equity, and it almost puts it in like a separate account, and you have 45 days to put that money towards another home, and then it will be tax-free, right? So if you make over $80,000 a year, you don't want to pay 20% tax on the equity that you just got from selling a home. Put it in a 1031, and then go buy, a duplex or a quadplex, and then that money that you can use that as a down payment for that new rental property, and it won't be taxed. Again, do your own research on that, please. That's just a very simplistic description of what that is. So next we have our TSP, which is essentially the military's 401k, or the our employee-sponsored IRA. Again, I'm going to hit on this a lot. It's not the amount of money you put in, it's the amount of time that you're in it. Right? You want to do at least 15%, set it and forget it. One thing about IRAs is you're pretty limited to the amount of funds that you can invest in. So for TSP, we have the C fund, the S fund, the I fund, the G fund, the F fund, and the L fund. Again, please do your own research on those and find which is the best ones for you. If you're not a big fan of IRAs for whatever reason, right, at least take the match if you're in the BRS option. So I know if you're recently joined the military, that's pretty much all you can have is BRS now. Some of us who were grandfathered in traditional, or some of us had the option to switch, but at least take the BRS, right? Which is 5%. So the military will match up to 5% of what you put into TSP. So if you only put in 5% of your check, the military is going to match that 5%. So you'll have essentially 10% of your income going into your TSP, but only paying 5% of that. So at least take that. You have a max yearly contribution of $19,500. That's how much money you can put in every year max. Can't touch it till you're 59.5. And you have a Roth option and a traditional option. And we're going to get into the difference between those now. So Roth, which is my personal favorite, I prefer Roth. One disadvantage of it is you don't get to write it off every year like you do in the traditional. Your contributions are taxed. So when you put in that 50% every month, that payment, right, or that contribution is taxed. But what you get in return is tax-free withdrawals. So when you're 59.5 and you're withdrawing this money from your retirement account, that's all tax-free money, which I like. You can pull out the contribution. Your contribution's penalty-free, but not the growth. There's no RMDs on Roth IRAs, which is really nice. No required minimum distributions. So that will make more sense on the next slide when we go over what that means in the traditional. You have a max contribution of $6,000 a year. Again, this is if you use like outside IRAs. Again, TSP is the 19.5. There's income qualification limits. So if you're married and you make over $193,000, or single and make over $122,000, you actually can't use a Roth, right? Or can't sign up for a Roth. And Roths are better if you're projecting to be at a higher tax bracket later on in life, right? So why that is, all of us should project to be at a higher tax bracket because we're going to start early and we're going to invest early, so we have a lot more money later on. And why that's advantage is pay those taxes now while you're at a lower tax bracket instead of paying it later when you're at a higher tax bracket, right? It's pretty simple concept. So traditional, right? This was the original IRA before Roth even came around. They are tax deductible, $6,000 a year, so you can deduct $6,000 from your income when you do your taxes every year. Tax-free contributions, right? So if I was using a traditional, my $600 a month that went to my TSP would be tax-free. That whole $600 would be going into it. But what you get from that is tax withdrawals. So when you withdraw your money when you're retired, that's going to be taxed. And because of that, right, since you're not paying taxes in the beginning, the government makes you start taking distributions from your account by 70.5. And why that is because they want that tax money. They're going to force you to take that money out so they can tax it, right? Roths, they don't care about because they've already taxed it when it went in. So it's just something to think about. And it has the same limitations on contributions. After that, we're going to go over brokerage accounts. So these are things like Vanguard, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade. There's tons out there, right? It's anywhere you can kind of buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds. So there's something called the 120 rule, which is you take your age minus 120, and that's going to be your ratio for stocks versus bonds. So, for example, I'm 30 years old, minus 120, so that's going to leave me with a 90-10 stocks versus bonds, right? Why that is, stocks traditionally more risky, and bonds are traditionally more or less risky, right? More stable, less variable, or volatile. Sorry. So while you're young, you can take that risk. You can afford to take the risk because you have more time to make up, right? But as you get older, you want to kind of start putting more of your money in bonds to kind of secure that money, right? It's going to be less volatile. So by the time you're old, what you have is what you have. Again, many variables to this, so please do what works best for you. So mutual funds, so started in the 1800s, right? It's essentially it's a big pool of money a lot of people put in, and to be able to buy all those stocks in one package, right? It is diversified, right? It's many different stocks. Normally, mutual funds a minimum of at least 90 stocks. Some mutual funds are like thousands of stocks. It's managed by professionals. Put that in quotations because who knows who these people are. They're the ones that are making the decisions on what stocks are in these mutual funds, when to sell them, when to buy different ones, right? So you're leaving that responsibility up to someone else. And because of that, typically mutual funds have higher fees. It's about 1 to 2% of the account balance, and that's no matter what, right? So say if your account's in the red at the end of the year, you're still paying that 1 to 2% because these professionals need to get paid, right? So that's just something to think about. Index funds, right, came later on. People were tired of paying these professionals, so they created something called the index fund. So it started in the 1970s, so fairly new, and the first one mirrored the S&P 500. So it's passively managed. No need for a manager, right? Because when you buy an index fund, it follows an index, right? So it's only certain stocks. So it's only going to trade these certain stocks, right? So a lot less management needed for that, right? If the stocks are already predetermined, you really don't need to manage that. And it's based on index. Again, one of the most famous indexes being the S&P 500, which are like the 500 best stocks in the stock market. An example is the Vanguard 500 Index Fund, and the fee for that one is only 1.04%. And again, that one follows the S&P 500. And just to kind of clarify, all index funds are mutual funds, but not all mutual funds are index funds. ETFs, pretty similar to an index fund. Biggest difference is it's tradable, right? Like you can buy, you almost buy them as stocks, or you trade them like stocks. But what I don't like about that is it adds temptation, right? You can open up your TD Ameritrade app and see your ETFs in red. You can get scared, spooked, right? If you don't have that discipline we talked about earlier, you're going to go ahead and sell them, right? You don't want to lose more money. ETFs kind of add that variable to it, the temptation variable. So that's why I don't like them. But they're essentially the same thing as index funds. They're just traded a little bit differently. So what to expect, right? On average, the stock market has a return of about 10% per year for the last century. It's a pretty good average and a pretty long trend table that we're looking at. Based on the type of accounts you choose, you can look anywhere from 8 to 12% return, right? Based on if you do traditional Roth, if you do an IRA, a mutual fund, right, an index fund, right, based on what you decide to do, anywhere from 8 to 12%. And real estate has pretty similar returns as the stock market, again, based on several variables. After you, right, as much as it's important to plan for yourself later on in life, it's also important to plan for those people who may receive this money when your time has come, right? So ensure that all of your accounts that you have beneficiaries named on them, and understand the beneficiary terms on those accounts as well. A lot of times there's limits on when your account will get transferred to your beneficiary. A lot of times there's time limits and stuff like that on that they have to pull that money out. So it's important to educate yourself on that as well. So in summary, we went over money mindset, 7 baby steps, calculate your retirement, Social Security, pension, real estate, IRAs, mutual fund, index funds, and ETFs. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you guys learned at least one thing. I hope I've at least clarified one thing in your mind about money, about retirement accounts, and I appreciate you guys sticking this entire presentation out with me. I know it's a lot of information, but again, it's important to educate yourself, do your own research, find out what works best for you. These are just my recommendations and just very simplistic explanations of what these things are. So again, thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great day. And remember, plan, 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 diversify, diversify, diversify.